Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is the show where we try and help you navigate, well, let's face it, a world that often feels like just sustained madness, right? There's just so much information flying around 24/7.
It's completely overwhelming sometimes.
Exactly. And figuring out what actually matters, well, that's tough. So our mission, it's really for you. We want to cut through the noise, pull out those, crucial bits of knowledge, basically give you a shortcut to being really well informed, maybe find some surprising facts, have a bit of humor along the way to keep you hooked.
Yeah, think of it like we're your guides through this information jungle in this landscape of just endless headlines, quick opinions. Our goal is to help you spot the deeper patterns, understand what's really driving things, and give you those insights that, actually make a difference, connect the dots in a way that clicks for you.
Right. Connecting the dots. And today we're diving into a really fascinating conversation. We've pulled insights from a Piers Morgan uncensored YouTube video.
Ah, the one titled The Beginning of the ND.
That's the one. Featuring Bill O'Reilly and Eric Weinstein, two pretty prominent thinkers. And we're going to unpack what they covered, the swirling Epstein files controversy, the wars in Ukraine and Israel, how social media is shaping, well, everything.
Quite a range of heavy topics, really.
Definitely. Okay, so let's unpack this. Bill O'Reilly kicks things off with this big question, doesn't he? This idea of sustained madness. And he immediately points to our phones, right? The 24/7 access. He says people read the most outrageous garbage in the world, and unfortunately some of them believe that.
Yep.
Leading to this perpetual state of chaos and hysteria, especially, he thinks, among younger folks. What's your first reaction to that frame?
Well, it's classic O'Reilly, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very direct. He's drawing a straight line from, information overload, social media, to societal instability. He sees it as really undermining people's ability to think clearly, particularly young people. And that's the madness. It kind of sets up his whole approach, which is very linear, very evidence-based as he sees it.
And that linear thinking really comes through when they talk about Epstein's death. He's just completely dismissive of anything but suicide. Says his New York sources, who he calls honest people, make it impossible for it to be anything else.
Right.
Now, he does sort of allow for the possibility of maybe collusion at the hospital to make it easier for Epstein to hang himself.
Yeah, he mentions that, but quickly says, well, that's for the federal prisons to figure out.
Yeah.
He's really leaning on the established systems there, trusting his sources, trusting the official story. His whole thing is, if there was something huge, some massive conspiracy involving big names, it would have leaked by now, especially with politics involved.
Which brings him right to his theory on why this is all blowing up now. He keeps stressing that the file went from Barr under Trump to Garland under Biden like 4 years ago. And his argument is, look, if there were big Republicans in there, the Biden team would have been leaked by the Biden people to the New York Times.
So because it didn't leak, there's nothing there.
That's his logic. He says that never happened. So for him, it's just the game of Trump is to get him no matter what. He even compares it to the whole Russian collusion thing.
So he sees it entirely through that political lens.
Yeah.
It's a very DC way of looking at it, I suppose. Assuming political gain is the only motivator for leaking or not leaking something. Pretty cynical, maybe.
Yeah. And then there's the whole Elon Musk incident. Remember that?
Oh, yeah. The X post.
Right. Musk posts this supposed bombshell about Trump being in the Epstein files, and then, poof, the whole thing gets shut down a few weeks later. O'Reilly's like, how does Alina Habba or Elon Musk know what's in the file? He points out Musk deleted the post later. He insists only the top FBI people, Garland, maybe Trump and Biden themselves, actually know. And the file could be anything, right? A page, 100 pages, who knows?
He's really pushing back against the speculation there.
He is, and he warns about conspiracy people making millions, brings up his Killing Kennedy book experience.
Yeah, you can hear the frustration in his voice about that. He sees it as just noise, dangerous noise that clouds the real issues.
Yeah.
And people profiting off it.
Okay, but what about transparency? O'Reilly brings up Alan Dershowitz.
The Wall Street Journal column.
Exactly. Dershowitz claiming no big names involved. So O'Reilly's advice to Trump is hold a press conference with the AG. Just lay out what the government knows.
Interesting advice.
His logic is you can't just release names if people aren't under investigation. It ruins lives. There's no context in the media frenzy.
That's a fair point about context, certainly.
But he also touches on something really core, I think, this American sensitivity.
Yeah.
people hate seeing the rich and powerful get special treatment.
Oh, absolutely. That cuts deep.
He uses Prince Andrew as the example, that perception that money and power let you escape justice. Americans just recoil at that, he says.
Yeah, that feeling of inequality before the law, that fuels so much public anger. O'Reilly gets that. His suggestion, maybe it's political, but it's also trying to manage that perception, show some accountability.
Okay, so that's O'Reilly's take. Now, Eric Weinstein,
Yeah.
completely different angle,
Something
right?
different, yeah.
He flat out says nobody can shut it down. Why? Because it's not about Trump anymore.
Exactly. He says MAGA has outgrown Trump, that the movement, this feeling that the people have to take back the country, will just buck anyone off who isn't aligned with it.
So the Epstein thing is like a symbol for that deeper anger.
That's how Weinstein seems to see it.
Got
A
it.
potent symbol of this deep distrust, especially tapping into parental rage.
He really focuses on that, the parent angle. He says, those of us with children are mom and dad before we are anything else. And these allegations get sicker and sicker, 14-year-olds, 12-year-olds, and that just fuels the fire.
He shares that really intense personal story, too.
About telling the FBI.
Oh, right.
If I ever find out that you were complicit in running a covert operation that used children, all bets are off because I'm a human being before I'm an American.
Oh, it's incredibly powerful. He's saying there are lines, moral lines, that are bigger than patriotism, bigger than anything. And he thinks suspected state-sponsored pedophilia used as like a tool, covert operations, tradecraft, crosses that line. He calls it a mismatch in scale and believes a chunk of America just won't stand for it if it comes out.
And then he introduces this really wild idea, the placeholder theory. Can you break that down? What does it imply about Epstein?
Okay, yeah, the placeholder theory,
Yeah.
it's pretty out there, but fascinating. Weinstein suggests Epstein might have faked some of the child involvement, like maybe using 22-year-olds but presenting them as 14 to his targets.
Faked it. Why?
Not for the act itself, but as a tool to compromise people, blackmail, control. He compares it to this old alleged U.S. operation involving a fake porn film to discredit Sukarno. Same kind of tactic.
So the goal wasn't necessarily the abuse, but creating the appearance of abuse for leverage.
That's the theory. It reframes Epstein from just a predator to potentially an intelligence asset running a sophisticated compromat operation. Weinstein even floats the idea that Trump, once in office, found the real information was quite different than we imagined.
Wow, okay. And Weinstein believes Epstein wasn't acting alone, right? He points fingers at states, intelligence agencies.
Oh, yeah. He thinks Epstein had backing of his state and possibly cooperation of our own services, FBI, CIA. Maybe foreign ones, too, UK, Israel, Saudi Arabia.
And that personal story he tells about meeting Epstein.
It's chilling. He says Epstein was way more interested in his scientific work, his physics theories, than his finance stuff.
Knew things nobody else knew. Obsessed with gravity. Connected to high-level academics.
Exactly. It paints a picture of someone operating way outside the lines of just a hedge fund guy, which leads Weinstein to say the whole hedge fund story was all nonsense.
A cover story.
That's what he argues. He mentions Epstein claiming he only hired Orthodox Jews from Brooklyn for secrecy, but says any decent forensic accountant could see it was dummy compliance, no real market trail.
So how does this massive story stay hidden, according to Weinstein? He uses that term. Negative contrast imaging.
Right. Negative contrast imaging. It's like looking for what should be there but isn't. You have this incredibly juicy story. Journalists are desperate to dig into it, but it consistently gets killed at the editor level.
Why?
Weinstein suggests it points to control from above, an intelligence operation managing the narrative at the editorial layer, stopping the story from fully breaking.
And Epstein's real product, Weinstein speculates, was silence.
Yeah, maybe providing other non-pedophile sexual opportunities, but his specialty was guaranteeing silence, installing a kill switch on powerful people who agreed to be compromised to get ahead.
But Weinstein doesn't want to speculate on how Epstein died.
No, he explicitly avoids it. He says all the fun people have with conspiracy theories is absolutely deadly for actually getting justice.
So focus elsewhere.
Yes. Focus on why the press won't dig into the supposed multi-billion-dollar hedge fund. Focus on the legal tools like state secrets privilege.
Can you quickly explain state secrets privilege for us?
Sure. It's basically a legal power the U.S. government has to block information in court if revealing it could harm national security. Weinstein is hinting that maybe this is what's preventing the full story of Epstein's network and activities from coming out. He thinks the conspiracy stuff is just a distraction from these deeper systemic issues.
And one last point on Musk. Weinstein notes Musk seemed very disappointed, saying, "We are not radical enough to understand the threat."
Right. And then Musk apologizes for the Trump-Epstein post. Weinstein suggests something in these files, something in the situation causes people to reverse course.
Implying some kind of pressure or hidden knowledge.
That seems to be the implication, that the stakes are incredibly high, maybe higher than we realize, causing even people like Musk to backtrack. When you put O'Reilly and Weinstein side by side on this, it just shows how fractured the idea of truth itself is right now. Is it about linear evidence and political games, or hidden state operations and controlled narratives? It forces you, the listener, to really question how you decide what's real in this flood of information.
That's a really critical point. And this idea of weaponized information, or at least contested information, it plays out globally too. Let's shift to Ukraine and Putin. O'Reilly's take is blunt.
Very blunt. He calls Putin a psychopath.
Says he enjoys killing women and children, idolizes Stalin. He thinks Trump just didn't get that initially.
Yeah, O'Reilly thinks Trump misjudged Putin early on, thought he could deal with him based on their first-term interactions. He sees Putin now as purely malevolent.
And he thinks Putin's gotten worse, deteriorated mentally, almost a lunatic.
That's his assessment. And because of that, O'Reilly actually praises Trump's recent, more aggressive language.
The 50 days warning, selling weapons to NATO for Ukraine.
Exactly. O'Reilly sees that as the right response to a leader he views as dangerously unhinged. He even predicts more sanctions, aiming to break the Russian economy.
Okay, now let's pivot to the Iran-Israel situation. Eric Weinstein sees this as incredibly dangerous, right?
Terrifying is the word he uses. He feels the West completely missed the boat on understanding that 12-day exchange of fire.
How so?
He argues it wasn't about Iran showing weakness like many thought. It was something else, a different kind of strategic signal that the West just didn't grasp.
And he brings up Trump's F-bomb rant about it.
Yeah, where Trump said they don't know what the F they're doing.
Weinstein doesn't see that as just Trump being Trump.
No, he sees it as calculated. Like his grandfather only swearing when things were really serious. He thinks Trump used that language deliberately to signal extreme danger, potentially involving China, Pakistan, India.
So the profanity was a specific high-stakes message.
That's Weinstein's interpretation. A way to cut through diplomatic niceties and scream code red about a situation with massive, potentially nuclear implications.
And Weinstein believes Iran is, what did he say? Trying to speak violence as the most skilled speaker of that language.
Yes, a chilling phrase. He warns that defenses like Iron Dome might not stop hypersonics.
And the idea of hypersonic missiles, maybe nuclear-tipped, hitting a city.
He calls it terrifying. He connects it to concepts like Armageddon or end times. Even though he notes Israelis don't like that kind of talk, he's basically saying the potential for catastrophe is real and maybe closer than we think.
Moving to the Israel-Hamas war specifically, O'Reilly's view seems more focused on the immediate tactics.
Right. He says Netanyahu wants to eliminate Hamas, but Hamas hides behind civilians, comparing it to tactics used in World War II.
He puts the onus on Hamas to release the hostages.
He does. But he also acknowledges the difficulty, saying sometimes there's no right and wrong, sometimes it's both wrong, recognizing the tragedy on all sides.
Weinstein, even as a strong Israel supporter, is much more critical of Israel's actions, specifically Netanyahu's.
Extremely critical. He says he was upset with Netanyahu from the beginning because he thinks Netanyahu was unintentionally doing Sinwar's bidding.
How?
He believes the Hamas leader, Sinwar, is goading Israel into attacking sensitive sites like hospitals and mosques precisely to generate horrific videos of death and suffering for propaganda purposes.
A calculus the West doesn't understand, he says.
Exactly. He even says, controversially, that after October 7th, his thought was, this is suicide by IDF, meaning Israel is playing right into Hamas's trap.
Wow, that's a harsh assessment. Does he offer an alternative?
He does, and it's radical. He suggests Israel should have adopted a strategy where every life was avenged with a change in the borders, basically annexing land daily until the hostages came back.
That's definitely outside the usual diplomatic playbook.
Way outside. And he critiques what he calls the Western mind for pushing simplistic concepts like the two-state solution onto people who, he argues, fundamentally reject it.
He mentions the from the river to the sea chant.
Right. He argues many in the West don't grasp that for some Palestinians, a two-state solution is absolutely anathema, even worse than death and destruction.
So he's saying there's a fundamental misunderstanding of motives and goals.
That's his core point. that Western frameworks just don't fit the reality on the ground, leading to ineffective strategies and ongoing conflict. It really highlights these vast differences in how conflict is perceived and prosecuted.
Okay, let's bring it back home, in a way, to the digital world we all live in. O'Reilly circles back to his initial point about information overload.
Yeah, the outrageous garbage people read on their phones 24/7, leading to chaos and hysteria, especially among the young.
It sounds like he sees it as a primary source of societal problems.
He does. A direct corrosive effect on critical thinking and emotional stability.
And Eric Weinstein agrees.
Absolutely. He says flat out, we have too much information and it's deranging ourselves.
Deranging. Strong word.
It is. He contrasts today's constant stream of depressing, haunting imagery with his youth when news was more sanitized. You only saw true horror if you were actually being there.
So it's not just the quantity, but the nature of the information and how constantly we're exposed.
Precisely. He thinks it's overwhelming our systems, making us numb, or maybe worse, changing how we perceive reality itself.
He has that line about the phone giving our lives a fictional video game feel.
Yeah, that's a really striking image.
Even when something serious is happening right outside our window, we're also watching it on our phone, and maybe our first instinct is to make a great Instagram story.
It trivializes everything, doesn't it? Turns real life, real suffering into content, a performance. He suggests our brains are literally prioritizing the digital representation over the actual experience.
Which is deeply unsettling.
Incredibly unsettling. It suggests a fundamental disconnect from reality is being baked into our daily lives by these devices.
And this environment breeds absurdity too, right? Like O'Reilly's quick mentions of Elmo Gate.
Yeah. Elmo's account hacked with anti-Semitic stuff. O'Reilly makes that joke about not having to pay Elmo's salary anymore because Trump defunded PBS NPR.
And adds, puppets really don't have the capacity for hate speech.
It's absurd, but it happened. And then he dismisses the Bridget Macron conspiracy theory, too.
Calls it ridiculous, doesn't want to go into that swamp. She had 3 kids, for God's sake.
Yeah. These quick examples just perfectly illustrate that outrageous garbage O'Reilly was talking about. How bizarre and unfounded things can take root and spread in this digital chaos.
So it really leaves us with a challenge, doesn't it? In this world awash with serious issues being trivialized and just plain nonsense flying around constantly, how do you, listening right now, build a more resilient, more discerning mindset? We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We went into the Epstein scandal, hearing O'Reilly's focus on evidence and politics versus Weinstein's look at hidden structures and statecraft. Huge contrast there. Then the global conflicts Ukraine, Israel revealing those deep divides in strategic thinking and cultural understanding. O'Reilly's moral clarity versus Weinstein's focus on misread signals and unconventional warfare calculus.
And finally, bringing it back to our own experience, that digital deluge. Both speakers agreeing that the sheer volume and nature of information delivered constantly through our phones is having a profound, maybe even deranging effect on us.
We heard O'Reilly's emphasis on linear thinking and trusting sources he deems credible, often with that political filter.
And Weinstein's more complex, sometimes speculative, dive into things like state secrets, placeholder theories, and the psychological impact of living life through a screen, both urging us in different ways to be aware of how narratives are shaped.
So here's the final thought for you. In a world where reality can sometimes feel like that fictional video game, what's your personal responsibility in sorting through it all? How do you distinguish the signal from the noise, the genuine from the manufactured? And maybe more importantly, how do you make sure you're truly prepared, mentally and emotionally, for the very real, very profound changes happening all around us? Changes that might be way more complicated than they first appear online.